how to develop confidence in treatment plans and herbal formulas, how to know what to treat first, how to acquire new patients and have them complete a protocol/treatment plan. Patients don't want or trust to take the herbs I prescribe. What can I do? These are all variations on the same question, or at least these different questions all kind of come down to a similar root type issue, which is clinical clarity and having confidence and understanding what it is you're doing when it comes to herbs and treatment plans. So it's very hard. We'll work this backwards, okay? Having the problem, here's the problem. Patients don't complete their treatment plan, right? It's very hard for a patient to complete a treatment plan if you haven't created one. So in order to have them complete it, you've got to be able to make one. It's very hard to make a treatment plan if you don't have prognosis. It's very hard to have prognosis if you don't know what's going on comprehensively, right? So oftentimes how we start is we learn all the tools. We learn like, okay, this is an herb formula. Here's another herb formula. Like this is Guizhi Tong. This is Shao Chai Hu Tong. This is Buzhong Yiqi Tong, right? Whatever. We're kind of collecting all these tools. Same thing with acupuncture points and other therapies and everything else you've learned. It's all been silver little bullets, shiny little pearls. And we keep them and we hoard them and we collect them. We put one more tool in the toolbox, one more tool in the toolbox, right? What happens then is that we need to learn how to differentiate those things because, you know, something like fatigue, right, for example, you know, in your mind, what's happening is you've got an associative memory. So whenever you take a new tool and put it in your toolbox, it comes with all the ideas around it, right? And that's how we start to ping these things because our job is to interface. When a patient comes in, the patient has complexity. Our job is to absorb that complexity. Their complexity looks like a bunch of symptoms, maybe a disease diagnosis, right? Oh, I've got fibromyalgia. Oh, I've had mold exposure, right? Oh, I've got retinitis pigmentosum, right? Whatever it is, they come in with this stuff and it's like, okay, now what are the symptoms around it? Oh, I've got fatigue, I've got brain fog, you know, I'm having trouble sleeping, I have anxiety, this kind of stuff, right? When we're trying to help somebody, we have to be able to interface that complexity and we have to be able to bridge it to some kind of intervention, some kind of therapeutic, some kind of treatment, whether it's lifestyle advice, foods to eat, foods to avoid, herbs to take, here's the acupuncture points I'm going to do to you, here's the stretches, here's the self-care, here's the breath work, whatever it is. We've got to have some kind of actionable step because that's where we provide value, right? This is kind of just defining what the fuck we're even doing in practice, right? So when people come in, we need to understand that that's our skill and that's the game, is to be able to provide them a vehicle to get from where they are to where they want to be. That involves being able to translate their symptoms into something useful. What the trouble is that a lot of our tools come in with overlapping associative memory. So what I mean by that is like, you know, you might learn Shao Chai Hu Tong and it's like fatigue could be part of that symptom cluster. You learn Buzhong Yiqi Tong, fatigue could be part of that symptom cluster. So when somebody comes in and they say, oh, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I have low energy, in our mind we're like, fatigue. And then everything associated with fatigue starts popping up as a potential possibility, right? It's like, okay, so do we need the Qi tonic, the Buzhong Yiqi Tong? Is there hidden pathogens? You know, and as you get better at this, you'll get all the possibilities will come up, and then you'll start to ask differentiating questions to try to remove like different chunks of those possibilities until you can kind of narrow in on, you know, one herb formula or something like that. TCM Weaver is built to help assist with that so you don't forget anything. You can see every connection and you can start to ask differentiating questions to narrow it down. That's one of the reasons that I designed that software to work that way, because it's going to act as an assist for the processes that are already happening. The next level from that, okay, well, here's how you know you're kind of stuck there, is if you ever catch yourself asking people the head-to-toe questions and you're just trying to gather as much information as possible about their system. This is a valid way to think, right? It's a valid way to do it. But what I'm going to tell you is there's levels to this stuff. So if you're at that level where you're just gathering things up and then you're hoping for a heuristic, you're hoping for something to ring a bell, right? Like you're hoping for the patient to say like, yeah, I've got this weird kind of constricting feeling on my neck. It feels like there's something in there that I can't quite swallow, you know, and you're thinking, oh, plum pit chi, you know, we're going to hit that ban sha hao po tong, like slam dunk. You're waiting for those kinds of connections so that you can feel confident. That's the first level, or at least a base level of understanding any of this stuff. And I operated from that mentality for a long time. Fortunately for me, I knew there was something else and I didn't fucking stop until I found it. The next step is to be able to take all of your tools, everything that you know about, and be able to categorize it with modular thinking. So when we start to go, okay, here's all the stuff I'm thinking about. Well, there's a pattern that has spleen qi deficiency. There's a pattern with like damp heat. There's a pattern with blood stasis, whatever. All that stuff can seem relevant to the same patient. You know, it's hard to eliminate, especially when we see like 5 to 8 patterns present in a complex chronic condition. You know, you've got somebody who's like, they got a big, thick, greasy coat on their tongue. They're having night sweats. They got 5 center heat. They have a thin, weak pulse, right? Like this stuff just keeps kind of compounding. They're exhausted. They've got very pale gums. They got dark purple sublingual veins that are huge. They got their feet are turning purple from blood stasis with neuropathy, right? Like all this stuff can start to compound. Oh yeah, and their sex drive is low, you know, and they get cold sometimes and they get hot sometimes. And you're like, holy fuck, what pattern is this? Well, it's not one pattern, it's a bunch of patterns. So the skill is to be able to take all those patterns and get them all out there. Yes, great. But then to be able to rank and organize the ones that you see. Because what happens, once you understand the order of operations of essentially the human body, systems thinking, not all systems are equally ranked. Not all herb formulas are equally ranked. Not all acupuncture points are equally ranked. There's going to be an order where first things first will start to emerge. So for me, when I start to see these complex chronic cases, and this is something that I had to get tuned into by different mentors and teachers and people who understood this stuff, there is an order. And so when I see things like there could be hidden pathogens, there's dampness, there's liver cheese stagnation, right? I can start in one place and know that because I'm following the order of operations, that sorting that one pattern out likely will help some of the other ones start to sort themselves out. So I don't have to treat like 8 different patterns on this person. I can start with 1 or maybe 2 and know that those are the highest leverage ones. And just know that as this clears up, we may see some other things clear up along the way. And this is a very good sign because the body's getting stronger that way. The body's getting less dependent on interventions that way, not weaker, not more dependent. Right? People are coming in, you know, they've been to Western medicine, they've been to functional medicine, they take the fucking $900 or $1,000 worth of supplements every month, right? I mean, I know one person's taking like 3-4 grand worth of supplements every month. There's no exit strategy with that way of thinking, right? They're just on it forever. People are kind of, the ones I work with, they're ready for something else, where the exit strategy is actually their body's going to get stronger and they can start to create their own health again. It's possible, right? I mean, you and I maybe know how to do this better than the average bear, but we have to unlock the order of operations because these questions here about confidence in treatment plans and herbal formulas, as soon as you've got an order of operations, you know exactly what the fuck is going to happen next, and you know how to pivot if something goes weird or goes sideways, because people will respond in different ways, but we need to know how to interpret that feedback, use systems thinking, and move to the next. So what happens is, instead of trying to sell somebody on the idea of like, here's the herbal formula, the missing Tetris piece for you that's gonna like fit in there, instead we explain to them there's a process. So we have steps and logical steps that follow. And so we need to find which stage they're in of that process, and we need to be able to help them get to the next stage and the next stage. Immediately reframing that, you're not getting somebody who's like kind of rolling the dice with you, like taking your herbs. They're understanding that the herbs you're using are part of a process. They're bought into a process with you. They're already longer term thinking. You just have to be able to back that up, which is, I mean, this is what we do here. We've got a whole group where we're troubleshooting cases, we're helping each other. I mean, this is like, you're not alone here. So confidence in treatment plans and herbal formulas. It's much easier to pick herbal formulas when you know which ones to start with for the human biological organism. Right? It's much easier to have confidence in your treatment plan when you know where you're starting and you know where you're going and you know how to kind of zig and zag if you need to. How to know what to treat first. Again, once you have an order of operations, you know exactly what to treat first. How to acquire new patients and have them complete a protocol/treatment plan. Yeah, because you get them thinking about plans and processes, not just treatment visit by visit, one bottle of herbs, whatever. You have to hold the frame. And until you can see the whole process, until you understand that, it's gonna be very hard to like hold that kind of frame. But as soon as you understand, these are the steps, this is how we're moving, it might take 2 weeks, it might take 2 months, it might take a year, whatever. We're putting one foot in front of the other in this way. And we have our tools, not just like a flat pile of tools just like laid out on the table, but we actually have them ranked and organized in a logical flow chart. So I know what to start with, I know where to go next. That changes the way you carry yourself. That changes what people feel coming off you. This whole thing about like having them complete a protocol or treatment plan, if your treatment plan's weak, ultimately, which is just like 10 visits or try these herbs and we'll see how it goes, right? Then they're not going to complete it because there is no plan. Honestly, it's just, it's fragile, it's disguised, it's the veneer of a plan. The plan actually has to have bones and sinews and guts and the things inside that make it solid. And this is what we do here. This is the whole thing with clinical clarity. And the other bit is patients not wanting or trusting to take the herbs I prescribe. Right, some of that's because maybe they've had bad experiences in the past. Maybe it's because you're not communicating well enough what the herbs are going to be doing. As soon as you house any particular herb formula within a process, people are automatically more interested in taking it because they know it's part of a process. It's not just another random thing. We need market differentiation, right? And one of the ways to differentiate yourself in the market, especially a saturated market, is to have an actual plan, to have a process. In a world full of people selling silver bullets, shiny supplements, right? All this fucking guessing, shots in the dark kind of stuff. And here you come with a plan. It's a massive differentiator. I've found people perk up and listen. The ones that are motivated and really want to get better, as soon as you start talking about a process and a plan, they're like, sign me up. That's what I need. I need somebody to take this complexity from me and help me heal. And that's what you provide. That's what you do. So I've spoken about order of operations before. It's in our program. I mean, I go deep on this stuff, but generally what you're looking at is like excess first over deficiency, exterior over interior. Like you're trying to help people, you're trying to help them heal. So you have to look at how the body works and how it interfaces with nature, right? So like if you've got a patient who you see damp heat and you see yin deficiency, and you're like, where do I start? You start with damp heat. It's excess. Okay, go to the yin deficiency later if it's even there anymore. And just know, like, you have parameters in your head and you go, okay, if I've proceeded with this, with the damp heat, and I'm doing something too drying, right? What would that look like? Is the person going to have flared up yin deficiency signs? And that way you can start to know, like, where the rails are, and you can get feedback from what it is you're doing. So it's like that with everything, you know? So if somebody's got like a chi deficiency and blood stasis, it's the blood stasis first, right? Start with that. Now, in some cases, yeah, sure, you may have to flip it or whatever, but 80-90% of people, excess first. You work your way from excess to deficiency. A lot of times the deficiencies are secondary. Like dampness, for example, it can block all kinds of stuff. Dampness can create the chi deficiency. But Jeremy, chi deficiency can create dampness. Yes, sure. However, if you give a bunch of chi tonics to a damp person, you can just be feeding the dampness, right? If you give a bunch of damp drainers to a chi deficient person, you're going to get the dampness out of the way. They might be a little more dry. They might be a little more tired. I doubt it, though. They're probably already tired from the damp. You see? So it's not symmetrical. Just because there's a circular logic to it, like, oh, spleen deficiency and dampness feed each other, like they make each other worse. Yes, but you have to know where to jump in on that carousel, and it's not the deficiency for most people. So you start with the excess, right? So that's kind of the general outline. I mean, I've spoken about this, I've written about this, but in terms of like getting people to finish treatment plans, getting people to trust the herbs you're using, how much of it comes from your own trust in the herbs you're using, in your own plan? And it's okay to be vulnerable here. It's okay to be weak here and have weaknesses. That's the first step to strengthening them. And I've been there, right? And I'm not perfect. I'm still learning all the time. But I've created a dojo-like environment. This is a training environment. You're not going to get judged. You're not going to get shamed for having weaknesses, right? It's one thing to have weaknesses and kind of like say, like, this is where I'm weak, and study and get better, and that's like to be celebrated, right? The trouble is when we know we have weaknesses and then we just get so scared about it that we just procrastinate or we self-sabotage or we don't do anything to get better. That's a different kind of, that's more of an adaptive challenge, right? You got to learn about yourself and like, what is it that makes you not want to get better at things? What is it that makes you want to be passive and just wait for everybody else to do it for you? You know, you got to figure that stuff out. We have tools in the program. That's more personal cultivation, right? That's where that stuff's unlocked. And you can take yourself through that and you can start asking yourself some hard questions. And you have a support system, right? So I really think for any of us with ambitious goals in this field, there's not a better environment than this world I've created to help you achieve those goals. Because you have to have the technical knowledge, you've got to understand things that not a lot of people understand whatsoever in terms of clinical clarity and how to be very good and very precise at creating a process. If you want the business success, you've got to understand fractal systems, which again is like nobody's doing this stuff. And then if you want to be able to get out of your way and solve your own adaptive challenges, which is where most of the progress is locked up. Once you understand the technicals, if you're not getting success, it's usually going to come down to some kind of belief system or something going on. Emotional needs, subconscious needs, that's all in there too. We've got a whole section for it. It's just a matter of being brave and diving in. So the material's there, and then we have a support system, and I'm in here every day, right? So we've got a community full of people that are very, very eager to help each other. It's an amazing group of folks in here. You can leverage your network here. You can grow here. and I'm kind of helming the ship, right? I'm not controlling every single thing, but I'm here to keep us on track for the North Star. So if you find a better environment for reaching your goals within our profession, I'd love to know about it. But as it stands, I think we've created like the best thing possible. So it's not going to get any easier, you know, than what's going on here. So there we have it, right? If you don't have confidence around your herbs, your patients aren't going to have confidence around it. And if you don't have confidence, it's likely because you're missing some key understandings. And that's part of what we fill in here. All right, hope that helps. Get to work.